Well, hello. Currency recap time. Joe with you here. It is Thursday, the 6th of November, getting into the last couple of months of 2025. I've got my 2 cents. You guys know how this works if you're following along. Just make sure you take responsibility for it. Let's take a look at the meaningful news of the day and how that impacted the broad markets in general. Let's look at some stuff technically, look at some basket trades and see if we can't compare some currencies together. And if we've got some currencies to trade, we'll share them with you.
Disclaimer. This video was created for professional Forex and crypto traders. Maverick Currencies is a proprietary trading firm that employs professional traders around the world. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits they generate. All trades and analysis in this video are for professional traders only. If you are interested in becoming a professional Forex and currency trader for Maverick, click the apply button in the video description. Let's break down what happened today.
Let's get into our market analysis. And what we are going to start with here is basically the U.S. markets. They continue lower. They're now testing some support levels. Led by the Mag 7, we had a pretty interesting move up to our most recent highs. And I would expect subsequently the exact same move back down to support levels. And it's been that. It's been super choppy. Larger range candles, big gaps, all sorts of things like that. But they have been led, or I should say fueled, by a lot of earnings announcements and earnings reaction. The Mag 7, some of the stocks, I refer to the Mag 7 as some of these leaders that have been really pushing higher and setting some pretty amazing numbers, are predominantly the leader. Take a look at this. This is a heat map from today. And if you browse through, you can see what's up here. We got Oracle, Microsoft, NVIDIA, AMD, Qualcomm, Intel. If you take a look at all the darker red, you'll know these stocks, Tesla, Amazon, Meta, they were just sympathizing and falling. And I'm just seeing a little bit of profit taking across them, and it continues to do so as we approach these support levels. Outside of the U.S., the Bank of England keeps rates at the expected 4%, but we're starting to see that vote slide to a dovish area. It was a 2 to 7, expected was going to be, I think, a 3.6, and it moved to a 4.5. So we are seeing a little bit of easing when it comes to that. And actually the pound had a pretty good push because of that. Well, I imagine that's going to be the stimulant, but we'll take a look at that as well. This is how we finished. So you can see the yen had a good move to the upside. We've been talking about the yen as kind of a defensive play, knowing that when the equity markets start to slide, the yen will move higher. The US dollar, on the other hand, just stayed out of it. I would expect it to kind of at least move a little bit higher, and it didn't. I see the franc, the euro, and the pound higher. Now, I truly believe that the three of those are moving because of some of the dovishness we're seeing in the pound. The CAD's flat, and then our risk on currencies definitely sliding lower. Let's move over to how we finished outside of those. Crypto continues to lose. We'll take a look at those charts. The S&P down over 1%. World Index about 1%. Gold and oil just kind of playing their own game, stepping aside. Here's the cryptos, more of just kind of sliding lower. We've been seeing this for quite some time as the markets continue to correct. We'll take a look at those charts as well. So this is kind of where we're sitting. So I've got a +2. Now, folks, I moved it to a +2 just because we actually slid below the 20-day moving average. I do think we're going to see a lot of push-pull at that area. That's just kind of how these markets work. So let's get into the chart itself. And this is the idea. It's the move that we had to the upside that was so quick, so fast, no volume behind it. Just boom, boom, boom. No sellers anywhere to be found in this move. However, subsequently, getting into earnings season, different moves. Gaps down, gap down that moves lower, a gap up that moves lower, a gap up that moves lower, lots of failing, a gap down. I mean, you guys can see this. We're talking about some support levels here that we're looking at. And I do believe that they're going to be tested and threatened pretty aggressively. Today's move to the downside, volume not so big. I thought it would be a little bit more, but I'm not surprised for where it's at. I imagine we have quite a push and pull here. I think we do see some testing, some threatening. I do think that we are going to get some sort of a rally or buyers stepping in to really kind of push. So I basically, this whole move that I've seen over the last little bit, about the week, I don't think that's going to change. And I do believe it's going to stay within these ranges, somewhere in this area to really kind of get things second guessing themselves, kind of pushing on the bulls and then pushing on the bears. So I don't think it's going to get anything less than volatile in the next little bit, especially with some of these earnings numbers coming out. Let's get into our economic news. Still not much out of the U.S. We did see a little bit of a reaction when it came to the ADP non-farm payrolls here at 42. The expectations for an increase was already built in. You could see it just got a little bit higher. Now, it might have hesitated the markets. We did get a green candle that day. However, I think there was a little bit more to it than just these numbers. A little bit of an uptick here in the ISM Services PMI. The big news of the day is obviously the Bank of England. So the vote, this is what we're seeing. So 2 to 7, 3 to 6, getting a little bit more dovish. Thinking, okay, we don't need to maybe change. Staying at the 4%, and the pound has moved off of that number. We'll take a look at it here in a second. And we do have the CAD coming out here with unemployment rate and change on Friday. That's pretty much what we got for the rest of this week. So let's just go ahead and jump into our currency analysis and see what we did today. Starting with the yen, good move to the upside. You could see we had a really cool pullback. I like that. I was looking at this the other day thinking that, hey, it was a pretty good move to that upside, but if we could stay above this area, it might be a pretty decent higher low, which it did set. So I like it. I think it's moving a little bit higher. It's going to hit up to a resistance. This is a pretty big turn over the last little bit, so I didn't want to get super, super excited. But I'm not going to punish it. I do it. I do like it. It's a +2 as far as volatility goes. And we could see more strength if we see more selling in the U.S. equities. Let's move over to the dollar. Speaking of which, I like it still. A little bit of a pullback. I thought it would have a little bit more participation to the upside. It is a pretty decent pullback after the shallow consolidation had with a breakout. So not even a retest back where it was a little bit ago. So I'm not sure if this thing's just going to go gangbusters. It might just kind of meander sideways. I really think it's going to have a lot to do with where the U.S. equity markets kind of finish for the rest of the week. So I might see this chop around. So I think I'm going to give it kind of a 0 in the longer term, but I have to give it a +2 in its overall velocity pattern because this is just a shallow pullback and is showing some good strength. Let's go to the franc. The franc was an emerging currency for me. I wasn't expecting it to actually turn. I'm wondering if a lot of this has to do in the expectations, or I should say sympathy of what the pound is doing. Thinking that, hey, because I saw this in the euro as well, but a nice little push to the upside, breaking above resistance. Now, I'm not going to say it's gangbusters. I'm going to give it a +1 just because it does have the higher low here and it has broken above the most recent resistance. It still has a lot to go. I think this is a pretty good line in the sand for it, somewhere in this area, but I just like where the RSI is headed. So I wanted to make sure I gave it some sort of positive outlook, at least a +1 for now. Moving over to the euro, which showed a lot of strength, a little bit higher. I'm going to go ahead and give the euro a +3. I just like the way that it just shoved itself above these levels, and it did it very, very quickly. Now, it had a lower high, or I should say a lower low, but it had a consolidation area here, and this is a shallow pullback at this level. And it just happened to have a really nice surge. I love where the RSI is on this, and I'm not sure if it's just kind of following with the what the pound's done, the expectations of how stable Europe can be in the future, but I just like the extension. Now, it does feel a little bit extended, so if you're expecting a little bit of corrective action, that's fine, but volatility-wise, I couldn't give it anything less than a +3. Moving to the pound, which was the second strongest currency outside of the yen today, which did have news on it, it just kind of flipped and shot up. Now, I know that momentum can carry these things. They don't really have to set lower highs and higher highs and higher lows, especially after an announcement. It was consolidating for a bit. I do like how it is actually above that resistance. It's this fall here that really needs to prove that it can at least climb back up to this area. I mean, I know it's a big ask, and I like what the RSI is doing here, but the moving average is flat. The SARs are flip-flopping. Now, I gave it a +2 because of the RSI and the break above a couple of these resistance layer areas. But understand, folks, that is a +2 on the overall surge. If this thing flatlines and corrects, I'm going to have to bump that down to a +1. but based on the news that it has and what it's doing right now. So a +2 in the short term. Let's move over to the CAD. The CAD has been sloping lower. I've been talking about this for a little while, the descending triangle pattern. But what's been interesting about this is it has really never done anything for me to get weak with it. I've been talking about, hey, if it breaks this area, I've got a nice target down here. And look at what this does. Just shadows. Now it is starting to roll over and setting a little bit, kind of a lower area. It's still at these resistance or support levels, but it's really just not committing. The RSI has been slowly moving lower. It is definitely still weak. I got to keep it at this -2 just because the descending triangle pattern, the drop on the RSI below the 50. But I just don't know if it has the oomph to actually really fall apart. So the CAD for me, even though I got it at a -2, I'm just going to leave it alone because it's really not reacting. So I'm going to step away from it for now. Let's go over to our risk on the Aussie, back to some support levels. A little bit of a range here. It's kind of flat on the RSI. It is below that 50, but it's really not going anywhere. I did keep it at the -2, and it's just because we did set this lower high. It's at the support where it could break. The RSI actually is just slipped back below the 50, so you could give it a -1. It's just where it's at. If this starts to slide, I think it's going to be a little bit more negative. Now the Kiwi, on the other hand, that's a -3. It's been super weak. It never seems to really gain any ground, even if it tries. You can see that the moving averages just at best flatlined. It's rolling back down. Big move here to break that support level. RSI comfortably below the 50, moving lower. Yeah, definitely just showing some weakness. So let's jump into the cryptocurrencies, and not much has changed. They're just kind of falling off. A little bit of a slip, corrective action, a slip, just out of favor. Looks like just rounds of profit taking. Doesn't mean I expect them to fall apart. However, there is just this nice trend of whenever they get a little bit of a breath, they just kind of sell off. So I'm looking at support levels, descending triangles, confirmation of that. I've got them all -2, -1. This is Bitcoin. It's another -2, opportunities to get short. Let's move over to Bitcoin Cash. More of the same. It's down to this lower level. It's kind of in a similar situation as Bitcoin is, just kind of slowly bleeding and out of favor. Now, Litecoin and Ethereum are a little different. I'm a little bit leery when it comes to where they're at right now. I'm seeing more of a consolidation going on here. So I really don't want to get them the -2. So I gave them a -1 here. Still flat on the RSI. This could easily change. I mean, all we need is one big candlestick, right? We've seen it before. But I'm a little bit more leery of those. I think Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin itself are the weakest out of at least the four that we follow along with. Here's Litecoin in a very similar situation. Just kind of meandering sideways. In fact, it's kind of retesting this area. It looks like it's trying to flatline here. So we'll see if this is going to be kind of sideways down. I went ahead and just gave it a -1. So here's the outlook for today, the velocity. And you can see there's quite a bit of change. Everything moved off of zero. It's either very strong or very weak. And I think a lot of it has to do with just the volatility that we're seeing in the equity markets. I'm seeing a lot of the Mag 7. I'm seeing cryptos. I'm seeing a lot of things that have been extended, pulling back. It's corrective action so far right now. So the reactions in these stocks aren't a little bad or a little good. They're really, really good or really, really bad. Outside of that, the biggest movers on the day are still some of those overflied Mag 7s. That's kind of where I think the main driver is and might be for quite some time. So with that being known, let's just go ahead and take a look at some possible trades. And it's not going to be too far outside of what we've already been looking at. So I'm first going to start with the Kiwi dollar. Thinking that I know the dollar didn't do much, but if we continue to see that Kiwi go down, and even with a small bounce in the dollar, we could get this confirmation to move to the downside. So I like that. I think the dollar is still a stable one to trade against anything that's showing some weakness. The other one I do like would obviously be paired with the yen. So here's the Aussie yen. Might be a good breakdown. And it's. I know that the yen reacts to the U.S. markets going up and down. The U.S. dollar is a little bit more stable here, but it's more of the weakness between the Aussie, I should say, with the Aussie and the Kiwi. Let's take a look at the Kiwi yen, and opportunities are all over the place if you're just patient with them. Now, I know that we did see some strength here in the pound and the euro and the franc. I just don't really believe in it. It's just a velocity move. I want to see a few more days established, maybe some sort of a consolidation in the daily chart. I'm just going to stick with the risk on, risk off for now because they've been working. So I'm just going to keep it there for now. Things can definitely change. So equity markets continue the volatility driven by earnings. I'm still seeing some scalping come out of those Mag 7s, but the overall motion, the overall levels of the SPY are in place. That can change. It's just been super choppy. So if you stick with those weaker currencies against some of the more stable, stronger ones, it's the US yen and the Kiwi Aussie. They've been pretty consistent. Wait for the corrective action, the pullbacks, and we could probably get some pretty good trades out of there. Always play relative strength and weakness and make sure that you're following your plan and position sizing correctly, regardless of what you follow along with us, right? All right, folks, thanks for joining me. We'll talk to you next time. See you, everybody.